Thank you. Thank you, Carla. Good morning, everyone. My name is Eloise Castinato, and our focus today, as Carla mentioned, is all about branding basics. And my focus today is to really talk about the impact that branding can have to your business and helping you start defining yours or enhancing the definition of what you're branding. So just a little bit background of me. I'm a focal point coach. I worked 28 years in the traditional corporate world, and I've spent the last few working with small business owners and helping them move their business forward in a variety of directions. And that's one of the reasons why I have created this particular webinar, because what I find is a lot of small businesses don't necessarily see branding as one of the things that they need to be focusing in on. They tend to think of it in terms of, well, that's only what big businesses do. Well, big businesses do, and they spend a huge amount of money on branding. But in my experience, small businesses that really understand the impact of branding and embrace it in their business and define it are much more successful. And there's some fundamental reasons why, which I'm going to get to in a few minutes. Now, I do have quite a few slides. I think there's like 25 slides or so. So don't worry. As Carla mentioned, this is recorded. There's going to be some questions that I'm going to be asking that are going to come out on some of the slides. If you don't have time to jot them all down, pop me an email, and I'll gladly send them to you, because these are the types of questions that you want to be answering so you can define your business. So what are our objectives today? Our objectives of today is to learn why branding is critical to the success in your business, because I think putting it in perspective is very important. And then to understand the key components in defining your brand. Because if we start breaking it apart, then it becomes a lot more manageable for each of you to say, okay, I'm going to take this part and work on this, and you're going to get a much stronger brand definition as a result. So our approach today is we're going to talk about why branding is important. Then I'm going to break it into two parts of defining your brand, part 1 and part 2. And then I wouldn't be a coach if I didn't ask about some next steps and make some suggestions for what should be done there. So let's talk about why brand. So first and foremost, branding is about building a compelling message about you, your company, your product, or services that is clear enough for your prospective customer to want to use or buy it. That's the main answer to why brand, because you can build a compelling message and prospective customers are going to want to use or buy your product or service. That's why it is so important. The reaction that you want to happen with why branding is that when they hear your product name or your service name or your company name, that they get they visualize an image from that. And the end result is that they buy your product. And if this works successfully, that's how you make the money, is because it gets the calls to action to come and they want to buy from you. So let's talk about some brand basics. First and foremost, branding is beyond your logo. Now, a lot of people think that branding is your logo. Well, your logo is one part of what your brand is, but it's not the whole thing. Branding triggers an association, expectation, and differentiation. Real branding does that. The logo and the message that can come with the logo helps reinforce that, triggering that association or that expectation. You notice here I've included the McDonald's I'm loving it. And this was a rebranding exercise that they went through a few years ago. And the I'm loving it is their brand statement that they have, which is suggesting that the experience that you're going to have with McDonald's is going to be something that you're going to love. Whether or not it's the fries or whether or not it's in a cafe, but it's going to be something that you're loving. And then the golden arches, I mean, those have been such a successful brand recognition for them as well. But they've been updating it with this new one to also suggest that brand is something that you have to make sure that you keep alive as well. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about what brand basics also needs to do. Branding must support your USP. Now, Question is, do you have a USP? Do you have a unique selling proposition, which is what a USP is about? If you don't have a USP, that needs to be the first thing you define, because you can't brand effectively, because your branding has to support your USP. So if you have a USP, that's great. You're already on the first step. If you don't have a USP, I urge you to define what that is, your unique selling proposition, because your branding is going to be supporting that particular piece. A brand is also the sum of all the characteristics that make your offering, your product or your service offering different. So it could touch on reputation. It could touch on customer service. It could touch on the promise that your business is going to be delivering it, like the I'm loving it from McDonald's. It could also reinforce a price. You know, when you think about some of the high-end brands that are out there, that the way that they brand it is such a way that you are actually not surprised that it is the price point that it is, versus, let's say, a no frills and the branding that goes with that. It kind of sets the expectation on pricing as well. There's that overall feeling that a brand can also reinforce. Attitude, that's a really important one as well. And also the kind of expectations that your targeted market has around the kind of product offering or product line that you have. And I put Starbucks in here as an example, because this is one that, there's a lot of imagery that comes with this. And I just put the logo here, but in the next slide you're going to see why, actually a few slides down from now, you're going to see why I bring these back. But I'd like you to just kind of think about just some of the other brands that have come out recently. So let's talk about the Yugo yogurt. The Yugo yogurt, the one that has the two black dots on top of the eye. Now that's an example of a new product that's come to market that has very successfully branded itself so that it actually has over 14% of the yogurt market within its first 6 months of coming out. That brand, if you think about how they brought it forward, they did identify what the product is, but they really went and made you have a feeling about the product. It's a fun product. It's one that's very upbeat. It's one that seems to suggest that you're going to have a healthy life and a more active life with eating that product. They've also used it to show that it's not just their Greek yogurt, but it's all their other lines that they have as well, and the fun and unique flavors. They've incorporated all of that in what their, not only their USP, which is, hey, we have this great new yogurt that's a lot of fun, and it's going to make you feel good, and it has these really unique and different flavors, but it's just an overall upbeat. That's the power of branding, and one of the reasons that got people to visualize an image. Geez, I want to look like this person that's diving in the pool that just ate the yogurt, or I want to look and feel as happy as these individuals. Let me go to the store, and I'm going to buy that yogurt. Okay, just as an example. So let's go through top 5 reasons to brand. Branding helps distinguish you from your competitors. The Yugo yogurt is an example. You see that with milk. You gravitate towards the milk that you want. You want your branding to distinguish from your competitors. You absolutely want to be able to have that. Number 2, branding helps define what to communicate. And this one's a very important one as well, because as a small business owner, you only have limited resources that you have financially and time-wise to be able to communicate with. So the branding, because it reinforces your USP and a bunch of other things, is going to help you define more on what to communicate as well. It helps you communicate your value proposition, your message, and it allows you to simplify your message as well. So you get that, desired image happening and them wanting to buy your product or service. Branding promotes loyalty. This one's really important because a good experience that is associated with the brand means that you're going to get referral business, it also means that you're going to get repeat customers. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you see a McDonald's, you know what it is that you can expect, and you're going to go there. Mercedes drivers, Tim Hortons is another example. Subaru, Apple, all these ones are signifying, an experience that's defined by that brand that people feel comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm going to go there because I trust it, because I've had an experience and I'm loyal to that experience. So that's what you want, because loyal customers are going to be also greater referral sources for you, and they're going to help you drive your revenue. So that's another very important reason why branding is important, and not just limited to the big companies out there. It applies to every business. Number 4, branding helps build business growth. This one is extremely important as well. Well, they all are, but this one I like especially because if you have a strong brand, it's easier to introduce new products or services because you've already built that loyalty there with a good, strong brand. So it's easier for you to grow your revenue with introducing new products when you have a strong brand that is recognized in your targeted market. So if you think about some of the companies that are out there, like Dove Soap, for example, Dove Soap for years was literally just the Dove Soap. And all their ads were, and all their material and everything they talked about was just Dove Soap and its 1/4 of whatever moisturizer cream. Well, they've come a long way and are continuing to build on their brand with introducing the body washes, the new men's line, all these types of things. And the market is soaking it up and buying it. Harley Davidson is another example. They went from bikers to clothing and all of the other little products in between and have successfully been able to grow their revenues because of that. Branding also helps protect your business. And this is really important because in times of economic concern or in crises, people will stay with what they trust. And so your business will not suffer as much in times of crisis because people will probably stay with what they're more comfortable with and not give that up before giving up something that they don't have a strong brand recognition and belief with. And remember, 72% of customers will pay 20% more for their preferred brand over competition. So it's very important from that standpoint as well because it protects your pricing too. Okay, so let's dive into the 2 critical parts of branding. There is the product and service, and then there's the personal side. On the product and service side, that's what I call the corporate half, and then there's the personal side, which is what I call the you half. So defining part brand, we're going to start with the corporate one. So the corporate one, and what you've got to be really clear about when you're defining your brand from this standpoint is what image you want your product or services to portray. And what are your core brand values? What are the attributes and the quality that make that up? And 2 other main elements. What are the promises that you're making about your products and service? And what are the promises that you're keeping? So those are the 3 main areas that you want to be thinking about with defining your brand related to the corporate side or the business side, which is around your product or service. What image is your product or service you want it to portray? What are your core brand values? What are those words or those attributes that you want to be used to define your brand and the quality of those? And then the promises you make and the promises you keep. So let's look at Starbucks, for example. So Starbucks is all about community, ethical sourcing, environment, diversity, and wellness. So you want to be picking these values or attributes or qualities that you want your product or service to be linked to. You want to be very comfortable with what these are. And what you need to do once you've done that is evaluate on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest, how closely your current product or service now embodies that image on which you want to build your brand. So, I can send you this template, but it's easy enough to draw out. So just draw out a box with the 5 columns of ranking, and then the 6th column, which is the first one, is going to be the value, attribute, or quality, and just jot in what you want that to be. It could be a word, it could be like ethical sourcing, a couple of words, or it could be, a phrase, but you want to be very clear with what those are and evaluate how you believe you are upholding those. So what are yours? What values, virtues, qualities, and attributes do you want your product or service to represent? And then evaluate just how strong those are. And then from there, what I want you to do is I want you to think about how you could improve these to strengthen and differentiate your brand. Because the stronger you are in improving these, the better off your brand recognition is going to be. Number 2, in what ways will this brand image differentiate your service from the competitive services in the marketplace? So you want to be picking ones that are also linked to your differentiation strategy, which also links to your USP. Number 3, how can you alter your pricing model to make it consistent with your desired image? Now, remember I mentioned just a couple of slides ago that 72% are willing to pay 20% more? You have really strong brand recognition, and it's built into some very strong value, attributes, and qualities that the market, your targeted market, very much values. You're going to be able to raise your price. This isn't about reducing your price. This is about potentially being able to raise your price and make some more profitability. Number 4, what changes in promotional activities and materials can you do to align to those attributes, that desired image that you want? So this is when you need to do a little bit of introreflection and look at all the different experiences that your targeted market has and whether or not those align with what you want your brand to be. And what I mean by experiences in this particular case is promotional activities and materials. But promotional activities could also be your place of business. It also could be your packaging. You want to make sure that everything is in alignment to what it is you want to be known for that is described in your value, attributes, and qualities, which you have outlined above. And what changes to your place of business will convey your desired image to potential clients? Just talked a little bit about that. But what do you need to do so that that whole place of business experience is in alignment if you have a bricks and mortar? If your place of business is virtual, same thing holds. It's all got to be in alignment so it differentiates and supports your brand and your product and service differentiation. Now let's talk about the second part. So the second part is you. You are your primary product, and if you have employees, your employees are also part of this equation. So there's 2 main elements here as well with personal branding, so the promises you make and the promises you keep. And you see now this gets a little bit trickier when you have employees because it's also the promises they're making and the promises that they're keeping all in alignment as well for moving forward so that everyone is singing off the same song sheet. It's also the whole package. So it's all about the appearance, attitude, overall behavior, and quality of you, and if you have employees, of your employees as well. Because that's one of the key things to also reinforce the brand. So appearance, attitude, overall behavior, and quality. And this is when it can be a little bit tougher for someone who has their own business because you're always on. It doesn't matter if you're out grocery shopping or if you're out and about, but your appearance, especially when people know that you have your own business, you're always, people are always going to look at you. So it's one of those things where it kind of is a bit of a 24/7 piece. So you want to be very consistent with that because you never know when a business opportunity will arise. Attitude is the same one, and especially important for if you have employees. What kind of overall behavior you're looking for. It's no secret that Starbucks looks for very specific people to hire. And if you go in one Starbucks to another Starbucks, generally speaking, you feel the same kind of attitude and you get the same kind of behavior or approach coming from their staff, from their baristas. There's a reason for that. That's part of what they believe is critical to defining their brand and keeping it up at the front and why they can charge $4.55 for a latte. Also, quality. Quality people, quality product. Definite association from a branding standpoint. So, I hope you're all seeing Kevin O'Leary right now because that's the picture that I'm looking at on my slide. And I chose him because this gentleman has worked really hard on defining his own brand personal image. So if we were to come up with descriptors for him, what would those be? So I've jotted down a few. I would be filling in this chart thinking about Kevin O'Leary with things like he has investment smarts, focus on money, very driven, very savvy, and very profitable. Those would be the descriptors that I would use for him. I want you to be thinking about what yours are to define you and your key staff if you have employees, because those descriptors need to be consistent. So in the case of Kevin O'Leary, he's leveraging those. So companies are coming to him. I mean, people are coming to him to invest in his O'Leary investments, but also companies are coming to him to want to co-brand with him because he knows how he's perceived in a marketplace which is in alignment with their targeted market. And like, for example, there's some wineries now that have partnered with him because they want to be with people and they figured out that their demographic of what they want to deal with are people that have money. And so therefore they're looking for investment smarts, money, very driven and profitable. So that kind of alignment. So that's the power of your personal brand within your businesses because it really helps also define what you bring and what your company brings with your people. So your product and services are really held as being, well, this is what it is that I can expect because this is the image I'm also and the feeling I'm also getting from you and the people that I'm dealing with in your company. So what are yours? What words do people use in describing you? And you know what? Do a little now and in the future thing because, you know, brand is an evolution thing too. You don't want to just define it now and say, okay, well, that's it. You also want to be thinking about what it needs to be looking like for the future. So be honest and say, okay, here's where it is where I am right now, but I don't really want this. I want this one to be the future. And then as we did on the corporate or the business side, I want you to evaluate how it is you're doing with this so you can make a decision on what you're going to be working on next. Now, here's some questions. Why will this brand image compel your ideal customer to buy from you? You want to be clear about this so that you can also communicate it. Number two, how can you improve these differentiators to strengthen and differentiate your personal brand, very similar to the corporate and the business one? And number three, how can you make your personal brand more consistent with your desired image, right? Because it has to be in alignment. There's two parts to this branding piece. There's the corporate business side, and then there's the people personal side. Okay, so what do you do now? Well, what I'm suggesting is that you pick something to work on this week to clarify your brand and what action you need to take. And maybe it's what's just defining what more you need to learn or to get more information on to build a stronger brand. Maybe it's that, you know what, I don't think I'm really clear on what my USP is, and I need to strengthen that up. The key is to take action, and then to make sure that you're managing your brand proactively by looking at it from the business corporate side and from the personal side, getting comfortable with the descriptors and the words that you want people to use when they're describing your products, services, and the experience with you and your people, and you will be a lot further to really building a very strong, strong brand. Resources are here to support you. I mean, Small Business Solver is a ton of resources as well. And also, I can send you templates from today's webinar. Please feel free to ask me any questions. If you want to discuss some of the ranking of what it is that you have done with some of these exercises, any other information, feedback, and questions. There's my contact information that will also be available when you look at the webinar in future on the recording. Whatever we can do to help you grow your brand, love to be able to do that. I'd like to thank you. And just a little quote from Serena Williams, I feel as a brand, I'm here to be around for a long time. And I hope that's how each of you feel about your own business, that as a business you have a brand and you're going to be here for a long, long time. Back to you, Carla.